The lights in Ward 7 had been off for 11 years. Then, at 3:14 a.m., every single one turned on. Nobody had a key, nobody had authorization, and nobody, according to every record, was supposed to be up there. My name is Claire. I was the charge nurse on duty that night. I should have called my supervisor and gone home. I'd worked nights at Harlow General for 6 years. I knew every sound, every shadow in this building. Ward 7 was sealed after the incident in 2012. No one talked about what happened there. You simply didn't ask. But the chain on the stairwell door was hanging open, and I could hear something moving on the other side. Then the lights went out. All of them. And in the darkness, I heard someone breathing that wasn't me. Let me take you back to the beginning of that shift. It started like every other Thursday night. Harlow General was a mid-sized hospital, 12 wards, 240 beds, and a skeleton crew after midnight. I'd been charge nurse for 3 years. I knew the rhythms of this place better than my own apartment. My colleague Dan had worked here longer than anyone. He knew things about Harlow General that weren't in any handbook. He told me once, casually, as if it were nothing, "The thing about Ward 7 is it doesn't like being ignored." I laughed. Dan didn't. He just looked at his coffee and said, "You'll understand when you've been here long enough." Ward 7 had been a long-term care unit, 16 beds, sealed after a fire in 2012 that killed 3 patients and a nurse. The official report said faulty wiring, but the fire only burned in 3 rooms. It stopped at room 4 as if something had refused to let it pass. I put the file back. I told myself I was being morbid. I had 6 hours left on my shift and 40 patients who needed me. Midnight passed quietly. By 1 a.m., the floor was calm. By 2 a.m., most of the staff had settled into the slow hours. At 2:47 a.m., the heating system made a sound I had never heard in 6 years, a low vibration, almost like breathing. Then the call bell system triggered, Bay 12, except Bay 12 had been empty since the previous evening. I checked the system log. Bay 12's bell had been triggered from inside the room by a physical button press. I walked to Bay 12. The door was closed. I could see the light under the door, not the room light, something else, something colder. I opened the door. The room was empty, the bed stripped, the window sealed, but the room was freezing, breath-visible cold. On the pillow, there was a single handprint, the size of an adult, the fingers longer than normal, pressed deep into the foam. I backed out and called security. 30 seconds later, the entire floor above us, Ward 7, lit up like it was fully operational. Security guard Leon met me at the stairwell. He looked up once and refused to go further. He said, "I've seen this before." He wouldn't tell me what he'd seen before. He just said, "Don't go up there alone. Don't go up there at all." I asked him how many times he'd seen the lights come on. He said it happens every anniversary, but never twice in the same night. But that night, at 3:06 a.m., they came on a second time, and when I looked up the stairwell, someone was standing at the top. Then Leon grabbed me, my arm, and said 4 words I will never unhear. "That's not a person." We backed away from the stairwell. The figure didn't move. It just watched, patient, like it had all the time it needed. Leon radioed the hospital supervisor, got voicemail. He tried the on-call administrator, voicemail again. At 3 a.m., we were alone. I checked on my patients, all stable, all asleep. But in room 8, Mrs. Hartley, 83 years old and barely mobile, was sitting up staring at the ceiling. I asked her if she was all right. She looked at me slowly and said, "She's been pacing up there all night. I wish she'd rest." I asked her who she met. She said, "The nurse, the one who didn't make it out in 2012. She comes back on the anniversary." I went to the staff records room. I found the 2012 roster. One name was circled in ink that had bled through 3 pages beneath it. Sarah Voss, night shift, Ward 7. Her last shift was November 14th, 2012, the same date as the fire, the same date as tonight. I pulled her full file. Sarah Voss, 31 years old, 3 years experience. Never found after the fire. Listed as missing, not dead. Missing, not dead. Her body was never recovered. The official investigation was closed after 6 months with no resolution. I heard Leon shout from down the corridor. I ran. When I reached him, he was standing outside the stairwell and the door was wide open. In the middle of the stairwell, on the 3rd step from the bottom, there was a nurse's ID badge, laminated, partially melted, with her photo still intact. Leon said he'd heard footsteps on the stairs, coming down, stopping at the 3rd step, then silence, then the badge just was there. I picked up the badge. It was cold. Not room temperature cold. Cold like it had been held in something that had no warmth left in it at all. Then the lights above us dimmed. Not off, dimmed, and I heard from somewhere in Ward 7 a call bell ringing once. One ring, the way patients ring when they need someone, when they're expecting to be answered, when they are expecting to be answered. Leon told me to call the police. I agreed, but when I turned around to find my radio, I realized I'd walked halfway up the stairwell. I hadn't decided to walk up those stairs. My feet had simply gone. I stood there, 8 steps up, holding Sarah Voss's badge, and I felt something I can only describe as grief. There was a smell in that stairwell I recognized from my training, the smell of a working hospital ward, antiseptic, clean linen, somewhere, faintly, coffee. Leon reached me and physically pulled me down the stairs. He said my eyes had gone blank, that I'd been standing there for 4 minutes without moving. Back at the nursing station, something new had appeared. On the admission screen, a new patient entry, typed while we were gone. The words appeared slowly, 1 letter at a time, as if someone was typing them, as if someone was sitting at that terminal right now. The full message read, "She is still on shift. She does not know she did not leave. Please tell her. Please, she has been waiting for 11 years. I checked the footage from Ward 7. The security camera up there, the one everyone assumed was dead, had been recording all night. For 4 hours, the camera recorded Ward 7 as if it were fully staffed, beds occupied, equipment active, a nurse moving through every room. In the 3 a.m. footage, I could see her face. For 1 second, she turned, and I recognized her from the photo file. At 3:47 a.m., the camera showed her stop outside room 4, the one room the fire never touched. She raised her hand and knocked on the door. The door of room 4 opened. The camera showed nothing in the doorway, but Sarah Voss went in, and she did not come back out. At 3:49 a.m., every light in Ward 7 went out, all of them, simultaneously, as if the shift had finally ended. Leon and I went back to the records room. I needed to understand what I had seen. I pulled the original fire investigation photos. In the final photograph, taken 6 hours after the fire, when investigators cleared the ward, there was a figure standing in room 4, in the photo that nobody documented. She was standing beside the bed of room 4 with a chart in her hands. She was still working, 6 hours after the fire, after her own death. I understood then. She wasn't haunting Ward 7. She was still working it. She never knew the shift ended. She never knew she had to stop. She'd left the badge on the stairs, a message, not a warning, a plea. She needed someone to tell her she could go home. Leon told me some of the older nurses knew for years. That's why they never spoke about Ward 7, not in fear, out of guilt. There was a protocol. Someone was supposed to go up on each anniversary and tell her, but the last person who held that duty retired in 2019. Noe replaced him. I took the protocol note. I read what I was supposed to say. And then, against everything rational in me, I walked up to Ward 7, alone. Ward 7 smelled like a working hospital ward. Clean, purposeful. The lights were warm. The beds were made. 16 beds, all occupied. Sarah was at the nursing station, her back to me, charting. She never heard me come in. She was always too busy working. I said her name. She turned and she looked at me like people look at someone who has stepped through a door they didn't know existed. I read the protocol words. I said, "Your shift is over, Sarah. You can go home now. The ward is covered. You can rest." She closed her eyes, and then the lights went out. I found that way up with a light from Leon's phone below. Ward 7 was cold and dark and empty. It has been empty every night since. But last week Leon called me. He said the security system flagged a new anomaly.
Not Ward 7 this time, the floor below it, Ward 6. The lights in Ward 6 had started turning on at 3 a.m., and when he pulled the records, Ward 6 was where the 3 patients died in the 2012 fire, 3 of them who never got their protocol, who nobody wrote a note for, who had been waiting all this time for someone to tell them the same thing we told Sarah. So I have to ask you, if you were the one standing at that stairwell door, holding that note, about to walk into the dark, would you go in?